What is up, guys? So, in what was supposed to be kind of a calmer, predictable weekend of Serie A action, we get this, wow, just craziness. First off, it's Roma, who cannot beat Verona. And then we move on to Inter, who just lost at the San Siro against Sassuolo. Lost. Now, Sassuolo has taken off points. I saw Marco Messina mention that they're like Robin Hood. That's an excellent way because they've been losing against the bottom half of the table, yet they're taking off big points. And sometimes, like today, all 3 points against the biggest, real kind of, let's say David and Goliath, but definitely with Inter being the Goliath, it's a interesting situation that Dionisi finds himself in. He brings Empoli into Serie A after winning first place in Serie B last year, and he looks, another guy like Italiano who is in the middle of his 40s, and they're doing exceptional. Really like both these coaches. So let's take a minute, I think, just to go over that. A good segue here into Inter Sassuolo. So Inter approaches this one without Brozovic. When they play without Brozovic, man, the team is they're completely different. And then Dzeko gets introduced late on, and just not the same team. It is very difficult when you have a key player, right? Because you depend so much on them. If I think of some of the teams in the past that have won so much, they're not heavy on the rotation. And then I look also at this Sassuolo, and you have to give the credit because that front three and this youth, right? That youth of Fratesi, who's 22, and Maxime Lopez, who's a young guy at 24 years old. He's getting the second most touches in the league still, just behind Brozovic. Berardi, who's he's probably 28 right now, I think. So you wouldn't consider him youth. But then they have a right back who's doing so good from Turkey. And then on the left, you see Raspadori, 22 years old too, who I think is perhaps top three smartest, most creative players in the league. And Scamacca, 23. He scores a bullet header today. That one sneaks inch perfect, what you want. So, but Dionisi is making the most of what he has. They were able to suffer. And speaking of suffering, I just got sent to really another interesting stat. They have, for teams that have had a expected goal XG of over 3, we're looking at about 6 or 7 different games. 3 of them have come against Sassuolo. What that tells you is maybe they're getting a little bit lucky, Sassuolo, in order not to concede, but also that that they know how to sustain their pressure. And when the going gets tough, they can hold back and they can sit a little bit. But then when I want to score goals too, they're going to put them up. And that comes from like not just Berardi, Scamacca, and Raspadori, because even last week against Roma, they scored. They still have Defrel. They have Juricic. These are good players who provide really important depth to them. And this team is owned by Squinzi, who's one of the most affluent business owners. He's in ceramics, which is why you say Mape on their jerseys, the Mape Stadium. So they have that affiliated sponsorship with the family sponsorship. It's more than affiliated. So a lot to speak about, a lot to be excited about if you follow Sassuolo. But I think it's just the general football fan, the general Serie A fan really appreciates what they do because it's exciting, it's young, and it's hopeful. So Ishmael, I will get to your questions. I see some coming in for Mourinho right now. Let's move on to Milan, away to Salernitana. Salernitana in last place. Milan at the time was in first. Might still be in first, actually. And you see Magnan, who's been the top keeper in Serie A thus far. He makes some uncharacteristic mistakes. And Milan also almost lost the match because of the second one. So it was a trick shot, I think, from Bonazzoli. And I thought they are another team in the winter who just supplied themselves really well. You see that they start to add guys like Perotti, Fazio, even. There's a bunch of other players too, are really exciting for Salerno. And I also saw another tweet which mentioned only in Serie A can you see Diego Perotti replace Frank Ribéry. It was really cool. These legends, what character that provides. It's cool to see them on the lower teams. Otherwise, you just get a bunch of random players that you don't connect with. There's not such good storylines. So I think at the end of their career, instead of going to Saudi Arabia, let's say, or Qatar or MLS, they stick around and they go to the lower Serie A teams. I think that's a really interesting move there. Um, and I didn't put it in the hashtags on Twitter here, but should mention Fiorentina Atalanta absolutely. So Italiano plays an interesting type of catenaccio where he plays with a low block in his defensive midfielders, Torreira being the key there, and Castrovilli acted as one today. And once they get it, they look immediately to get the ball out to the flanks, which is why you see Icone come in and Sotil, um, and Rodriguez, Gonzalez, Nico Gonzalez playing on the right wing today for Fiorentina. And they're so influential. They're getting the ball a lot because that's all down to Italiano's play. On top of that, you get Piatek, who's having a career renaissance in Florence. So in the city of the rebirth, you see his career absolutely reborn. A beautiful thing for him. He's very lucky because he had a lot of ups and really he got hot really quickly. Let's be real. And then he went down over the years. We're like, oh wait, well, what's up with this guy? And now you see it because Italiano's ball makes such an emphasis on the striker getting in the center of the box and just being able to finish. It's not a total football style in that sense. You just need a true fox in the box, and he will get goals. Piatek proves that. Atalanta definitely missing a step there without Zapata. It's to be expected. But on top of that, in the past 2 years, they've lost Papu Gomez and Ilicic, who I think was probably their most the player that they really depended on. I think when the going got tough was Ilicic, and it's a sad thing to see because he's out with supposedly with depression issues. So you got to feel for him. Atalanta's in a tough spot because they're losing players from a variety of situations now, and off the bench they just don't have the creativity or firepower in order to keep competing. I don't think they're going to fall out of Champions League places. I don't think that they are going to finish top 4 this season. So they just got sold. It's interesting that Percassi will keep 45%, 55% will go to this new American consortium, Società, whatever you want to call it. So I think that these next 2 years, we're going to find out, what are the ambitions? Do they want to maybe invest a little bit more than they typically have and start to get one star player here, another star player there, instead of just looking for opportunities the way that they structure their business model while still selling off key players each year, whether it's Cassier or Caldado, whoever it might have been throughout the years. So let's move on to Roma. Yes, Jose Mourinho. We look at that disgusting first half and match against Sassuolo. Also, we use that word disgusting. And the first half of Verona, and they're getting their butts whooped at the Stadio Olimpico, something you should never say. And all of a sudden, it looks like the ship not only has a hole in it, but is sinking. This ship is going down. And in the last 25 minutes, though, as unorganized and undisciplined and unable to sustain pressure that Mourinho absolutely is culpable for, because he's the coach and you have to play to your players' strengths. No matter what, you have to adapt. Part of something about football and life is being able to adapt. He also has to get the credit for the substitutions, right? He brings on the youngsters. He brings on Volpato and Bove and Zielinski, who start to turn this game around. And for a second, if it wasn't for such a short amount of time, a questionable amount of time by the referee, Roma probably could have won this. A real Roma remontada, real remonta comeback. So it was a shame that opportunity was taken away. Stinks. However, to see Volpato come in, 18 years old, get his first goal, as well as Bove, it gives you that little bit of hope, right? Because disappointing. Ever since, I would say, starting in the month of October, from a Roma fan's perspective, it's disappointment and a little bit of disbelief and second guessing. Why are we paying this manager so much money, regardless of his pedigree? And then the other side is well, it's a project, it takes time. And it's a little bit of both. Be honest with yourself. The team does not look organized when they go out and play, and they play the 3-4-1-2 or the 4-2-3-1, as we saw against Verona. They're not comfortable being who they are. They're meant to sit back. This is not a team, or you don't have the personnel right now that looks comfortable in sitting back. It's not that type of defense. Smalling is not that type of center back. Kumbula maybe a little bit more so. Ibanez, Mancini, absolutely not. That's not their style. Karsdorp hasn't been, I don't know, he hasn't been great. He's been okay. Kind of like a mediocre. I mean, he made a couple mistakes yesterday, but he's Niles might be an okay player, but pretty good. Oliveira started really hot, pretty good. Okay, not enough. I don't know why he fell off in the way that he has recently. And then you look at Cristante and Veretout. It's a bunch of okay. Like, it's mediocre. I don't think that player for player, regardless of the salary, forget about that for a second. If you mash up these players, I don't think they're there, quality wise. But then part of that, you can't omit the liability of the coach, because that's ultimately what you pay somebody for. He's making something like 12 million euros a year, albeit if Tottenham is paying a part of that, it doesn't matter. They're still on. There's a certain responsibility that comes with that figure. So nobody's not culpable. Everyone has to share a little bit of that pie, that humble pie, right? Now we have to figure it out. And going forward, it's going to take more discipline from everybody. What's up, Roman? And Ishmael says, do you think Jose will quit Roma and go to a bigger club? I don't think so, because when he signs on for that contract, right, it's 3 years. And I see this very much as his pet project. Like, he wants it to be exactly the way he wants. He wants disciplined defense, quick counterattacking style. The difference between Roma coaches in the past and Jose, well, Jose's got a lot more trophies than any coach who's ever been with Roma. So it's something to say. You can't doubt him in that. Then there becomes the question of, is he antiquated or not? A lot of people will say Mourinho's tactics are antiquated. Counterattacking is never antiquated. Let me tell you that. Many teams have won and will continue to win under counterattacking styles in forever, as long as football and planet Earth exists. That's interesting. If maybe he went to Newcastle, I mean, perhaps they'd have to buy him out, though. Regardless, though, I think that the Friedkins do show initiative when you sign a coach like Mourinho. I don't think they're going to go from Mourinho to, like, okay, our plan B is Serge Cosme, like some nobody. Like, it's not just all or nothing. Like, they were willing to pay 12 million to Mourinho or whatever it was, but not, a decent salary to a really good up and coming coach, like, let's say Italiano, for instance. Well, is he setting up for a long-term project or here temporarily? He's definitely here for his contract. You can't speculate other than that. He's always said that he loves it here. He wants to remain throughout the entirety of it, for his 3 years. How many fit Jose's style, and how many transfers would it take to have most players fit into that? It takes a massive summer. When we go into June 1st, it's going to be really something. I think an undertaking of Pinto. Could Karsdorp be that guy? Not sure. Maybe Vigna could. You're going to have to get 2 new midfielders. You need a left winger for sure. Zaniolo will keep playing. He's going to need some cover on the right as well. Perez will probably go. Diawara, guys will go. Cristante. I've added 2 midfielders that don't truly fit. And then the Wiki Tiki 123 says counterattacking is not sustainable. You might win for now, but right now you won't sustain. Winning football will remain for a top team. There's different trains of thoughts there. However, going back to the summer, it's going to be very interesting. A lot of Romanisti want Fratesi because of his ties. He's from Roma's academy. Maybe. I'm not sure that he fits any more than Veretout, to be honest. What's the difference between those 2 players? They're box to box, but neither of them are defensive midfielders who can sit in and comfortably control possession, make smart passes, win slide tackles, win aerial duels. That's really what you want from Mourinho's Copia, his 2 midfielders right there to sit in. And Ishmael says that Mourinho wants to build from the back. Well, I think they're going to have to sort out the center backs and the outside wing backs then for sure this summer. So it's going to be very interesting. Hopefully Spinazzola comes back, but Spinazzola is also more of a wing back. He's right-footed, wants to get very close to goal. And, does he want to count on somebody who's like 30 and is coming back from such a devastating injury? That's a big risk. You You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket like that. Guys, it's been a very exciting weekend right now. It's coming to a close. There is a game tomorrow on Sunday. For the life of me, I can't remember what it is. But anyway, there is definitely a few things I think that made this weekend so interesting, and it comes from the coaching. It's Dionisi, it's Italiano, it's the drama of Mourinho, and Ishmael says that, yeah, he likes to play 4-2-3-1 for sure. He doesn't like this 3-4-1-2. And there's a lot of young coaches who are definitely worth examining their tactics. How are they able to pull it off? And it's exciting times. But if we're going to recap on Roma, it's got to be much better. It's got to be better from Mourinho. The players have to come out with a different mentality. And the one thing that I want to leave off is how important these youngsters are to the growth of Roma. Think of the amount of players who are from Roma's Primavera that are out now. Caprari, Fratesi doing their thing, Scamacca. These are players that we could have used. For sure that Roma could have used. I should stop saying we. That Roma could have really made an emphasis on Verde, Daniele Verde. You know, having him on the wing would have been great. It's a lesson that I think everybody in the club needs, is that don't give up on these guys. When they start to show potential, harvest them in some way, use them, nurture them, get them onto a B team all together. Buy a B team, which might happen actually with the Friedkins. And I think for all of Italy, they could take that as a sample. Learn how to handle these young players, keep them together, get a philosophy, a way that you want to keep playing, not just from the first team, but all the way that it trickles down, a mentality. And that's your long-term way to success. And Ishmael has one last thing here. He says, I wish we can get Raspadori. And I think actually Raspadori is, put on Twitter, the number 10, the type of creative force, the mentality, the brain who should come in. So guys, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm on Twitter, Instagram. Also, shout out to Poshmark. Just got this sweater off Poshmark, Scotch and soda. Very cool. Secondhand stuff. We'll talk soon for sure.